تفضل. وعليكم السلام.
Hey, H from Queens, New York City, New York. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Hope all is well with you and your family. My question is, what is the difference between conditions, obligations, pillars, and an act of worship? Shukran.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you as well, Akhi. Jazakallah khairan. Inshallah, this will be our last question tonight. In brief, a pillar, an obligation, and a condition in the actual act of worship. Let's make, for example, let's talk about the salah. And then let's talk about a building, a structure. So the salah is the act of worship. Is an act or a statement, a disposition, a belief that Allah has commanded us to do. Meaning that Allah loves it and Allah is pleased with that thing. Wa aqimus salah. Allah says an established prayer. So prayer is ibadah, is worship. So therefore, how are we to perform this worship? We are to perform this worship in the manner in which the Messenger of Allah performed it. Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Pray like you see me praying. How did the Prophet pray? Did he pray? Going back to Brother Elijah's question. Is this one hadith that we have? No. We have several hadiths. So the people of knowledge, the scholars of Islam, the fuqaha, the jurists, the law doctors, they looked into those hadiths collectively. And they put them all on the table. And they sorted through them. They sifted through them. And they classified them. And they came out with conclusions. Some of those conclusions are, this thing has to be done in order for your prayer to be valid. Some of those conclusions are, this thing cannot be done if you want your prayer to be valid. Certain conclusions are, this is a recommended, preferable thing to be done for your prayer. And other conclusions are, is that this is something that has to be done before the salah. And this is something that has to be done at wahakada. So, a condition of the prayer is that it has to be time to pray. You can't pray before it's time to pray. You cannot pray before it is time to pray. إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ كَانَتْ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ كِتَابًا مَوْقُوتًا. Prayer, Jibreel ﷺ, he taught Muhammad ﷺ how to pray. He came to him the first day, the second day, and he taught him when to pray on time. Everybody understand this? Yeah. Allah says that the prayer is prescribed upon the believers in fixed times. So you cannot pray before or after it's time to pray. Well, unless you have an excuse. So with that being said, you praying in a certain time as a condition of the prayer. It is not an act of the prayer. It is not an integral part of the structure of the prayer. It has something to do with a prerequisite of the prayer. Something has to be done and fulfilled before actual prayer. Like making a building. You have to have a permit. You have to have this type of zoning before you pick up a piece of plywood and a hammer and a screw gun. Having a permit has nothing to do with what? The building. But it's a requirement before the building. And it must also continue while you're making it until you're done. Everybody clear on this? As far as the rukn, a pillar of the prayer, then it is something that must be done, just like a prerequisite. But the difference between a rukn, a pillar, and a shart, the prerequisite, is that the rukn is an actual part of the prayer. So a part of the building is this beam. It is something that is needed, if not the roof will collapse. But the difference between the zoning permit is that the beam is actually a part of the actual building. And if there's no beam, then there's no building. Forgetfully, intentionally, roof is going to collapse. And then we have that which is a wajib, a mandatory act of the prayer, not before the prayer. The similarity or the parallel consistency between the wajib and the rukn is that they're both a part of the prayer. They're both mandatory in the prayer, but one thing the prayer cannot exist without, and one thing the prayer can exist without, such as the beam and the roof collapsing, and such as heat. We can have a building that's erect, that's standing up, and there's no heat inside. But in New York City, in January, it's mandatory to have what? Heat. But the building will survive without the heat. But the beam and the roof collapsing, the building will not what? Everybody clear on this? So it's something that you can fix later on. You didn't install the heat. But if you miss the beam and the people sit down and the roof collapses on them, you can't what? Go back and what? Fix that. So the wajib in the salah is something that you have to do, something that's a part of the prayer, but something that can be fixed if you forget it unintentionally. That's the difference between a wajib and a rukn. As far as the recommended acts of the prayer, then that's clear. Something that you don't have to do, the prayer is valid with or without. Such as carpet in the masjid. The masjid doesn't need carpet. But it perhaps is preferred for the Muslims to be comfortable. But it's not an absolute necessary staple of a building. وَهَكَذَا. And then we have nullifiers of the prayer. Things in which you do, your prayer will be null and void. Things that which you have in your building will be null and void. And it is obviously outside of the body of the building as well. Everybody clear on this? So that's in brief with the nice subhanahu wa ta'ala with regards to the differences between a shart, between a rukn, between a wajib, between a sunnah, between a mubtil, and between the makruhat, things which are disliked in the prayer. I hope that these words are clear. Bidnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. To my dear brother, Lutfi, Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Anything we said that was good and positive was only from Allah and His grace. And anything that we said that was incorrect or negative was from my ignorance and shaitan. And Allah Azza wa Jalla and His Messenger and His Deen are totally free therefrom. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa alaikum salam. How are you, Akhi? Alhamdulillah. Inshallah. Barakallahu feek. Thank you, Sheikh. Shukran.
Forgive me, man. All right?
No, for what?
No, all right.